Well, to answer the recognized question, I was dead. So I wouldn't get, oh, hi, I'd get, and every time it would scare the bejeebies out of me. I'd just be walking around trying to live, you're the, and this went on and on and on. And I had no reference to TV or the film industry or anything like that. I grew up mostly in Colorado and then was living in Seattle doing theater. And, had one of my greatest teachers up here, Mark Jenkins, who I just have to give a little shout out to. And then I met David up here and was hired to be a corpse wrapped in plastic for a few days. And that is a great way to learn about a film set, by the way, is to just be laying on a table or a beach wrapped in plastic. Because you just get to be a sponge and soak it all up. And I will never forget one of my first days of filming, and Laura Flynn Boyle, who had been in the film industry for a while, I think, by that point, right? And I went and was introduced to her and was sitting in her trailer, and somebody, a PA came up to me and said, "Can I get you anything? Would you like anything?" And I said, "Oh, I just need to find a glass of water. Where could I find a glass of water?" And they said, "Oh, I'll get you a glass of water, don't worry." And I said, "Oh my gosh, thank you so much." And I turned to Laura and I said, "Everyone is so nice here." And she, with her cigarette, said, "Honey, they just want to know where you are all the time so you don't run off." And that was my entry into the film industry.
Well, in my other life, I am a consultant to scientists and engineers and IT people. And so those people, and shall I say nerdy people, because we can say that about Bill Gates, so many times in my classes with people, they would come up afterwards, and one of my books is called Technically Speaking, A Guide for Communicating Complex Information. Real sexy title. And I would have these with me when I was teaching classes as a textbook. And I can't tell you how many people came up in the classes and said, "Would you please sign this as Sylvia?" Because they all were Twin Peaks fans. And so, and they didn't usually say that until sort of the end of the class, so I didn't realize that that's what they were thinking of me as a drunk. And so that was really, really interesting, and I ran into that a lot. Another thing I was going to mention is that during the time we were shooting, we had a young man from Tokyo that came to stay with us. I called him my Japanese son, and Kazu went back to Tokyo, and he said he was a minor celebrity because he had lived with somebody who had lived with Sylvia and in Twin Peaks. And so he was a big deal. He said he absolutely loved it. And as a note to that, he has a blog out now. We still keep in touch 22 years later, and he has been writing daily about the nuclear reactors and the problems in Japan, about the contamination, and it's really very sad to read that with Kazu. But that was really, really interesting about how much the Japanese loved it too.
Yeah, there were a lot of Japanese who came to the first Twin Peaks Festival. The only other one I ever attended was in 1992, and there were a lot of Japanese. They came on tour buses, and they were just, with a lot of cameras, and we did a lot of bowing. I remember that. We did a lot of bowing. But they were a wonderful bunch, and we had a great time in '92. Another question, somewhere?
Yeah, I got one. My name is Alex. I'm from Utah. Of course, we all know you by your real names and, of course, your character names. But if you could play anybody else in the series, or if you could have played someone else in the series, who would it be and why?
I would have liked to play the third character that David promised me. The third one. After I died the second time, there was actually a third one, had the network let the show go on the air longer. But I won't tell you about her.
I would love to have seen that. Go ahead. Okay. What was the question again? Oh, yeah. Yeah, I thought I was going to play, actually, I thought I was reading for the part of Harry S. Truman. I was all prepared to be the sheriff of Twin Peaks. And then I came in and I met David Lynch, and we didn't talk about the script, and it was called Northwest Passage at that time. Very famous Spencer Tracy movie. And we didn't talk about the script or the characters at all. We talked about our first cars. He had a Volkswagen Bug, I think was his first car, and I had a 1960 Alfa Romeo convertible. That was my first car.
What?
I'd saved up $1,100 to buy that in 1964 when I was in high school.
Wow.
That was a real chick car too. I drove around and they just went for the car. Anyway, what was the question?
If you could play another character on Twin Peaks, who would you like to play, Billy?
Yeah, with Sheriff Truman, yeah. So anyway, I had this interview with David, and we talked for a while, and then a couple of days later, they called and said, "Yeah, David wants you to play Leland Palmer." Who in the hell? Leland? Who's that? I remember reading the script, but I don't remember that character, you know. And so I had to go back through it, and I said, "Oh, there's Leland. He hears his daughter has been killed. He cries. Here he goes to the morgue and sees his daughter's dead body and cries. Here he is in the bedroom, and the deputy's taking away his daughter's diary. He cried. I said, Jesus Christ, all this guy does is cry. And, but anyway, make a long story short, ABC approved of us. Me and Beamer went in, and we read each other's parts. He read Leland, and I did Ben Horn. And ABC executives didn't know the difference. And they approved us, and I played Leland Palmer, thinking that all the time that I should have been a great Sheriff Truman.
Another character that I would like to have played, if I could, I'd have to say Lucy. My favorite character, I must say, and the one that I feel is the most, that I'm the most like in my personal life. I identify with her the most. But I love it that she played it, because she played it just right, so.
Yes, I know what I would like to have played. A great outdoorsman who lived at the top of a very tall cherry tree, which he took the stems and made little knots and then threw them down at the other people. It wasn't in the script, but it should have been.
I wouldn't have liked to have lost a daughter, but one of my favorite scenes was Grace's with the drapes. That was such a great scene. So Grace Zabriskie would have been fun to have done that.
I'm from Portland, and I have to confess, I am a babe in Twin Peaks. I have been watching the show for a month. The only reason I am here is because I had to drive this stupid Irish woman up. And I decided if I was cooking, I should watch the show. So the very last episode I have seen is you dying. So spoiling it, God. But because that is the last image I have, I am especially especially impressed with your range of character, because Leland Palmer, you're right, the very first episode he does is he just cries over everything, and then he sings and dances at everything, and then he's a batshit crazy man that gave me nightmares. That final episode that I saw, where you're just, when Bob is out and you smile at the camera, dear God, man. So this question is originally directed at you, but actually very applicable to all of you, is what was the most difficult scene for you to play, given some of the terrifying things you had to do, and some of the darkest pits of human emotion that you have to reach into? What was the hardest scene for you to film?
That's a great question.
There were a whole bunch for me. Anytime I had to do anything with her, just tore me up. Especially, when the first one, when I went to the morgue to identify her body, that killed me for days. That stayed with me for days. I think we did that take about 4 or 5 times, and it was just exhausting every time. It just full out, and that got to me. But I think really technically the most difficult scene that I did on Twin Peaks was my dying scene in that cell with the sprinklers on, coming down my throat, up my nose and into my eyes, while I was trying to do these lines and act with Kyle and everybody else in the room. It's okay, honey. You're not old enough to see that show yet. That was the most difficult one, the water going down my throat and trying to do it. And I really, at the time, I remember thinking, I don't think I'm doing this very well. But it turned out that it was good enough. Yeah.
That's great.
Thank you. Thanks for mentioning that last scene. Thanks.